Okay, I'm going to do a quick intro so see what I can see can run his magic edits in the robot, and then
Okay.
I'll just kick it over to you. First thing we usually do, like you said, like just give us your full Air Force journey, where what you're doing now, and then start with where you're from, why you joined, all what your original AFSC was, any PCS moves or bases that you were at, cool things that you liked, didn't like, whatever you want to chat about. And then, like he said, I'll specifically ask how you were interested in or got tied into the innovation space initially in your career, and then how that, what you're doing with it, what you're doing with it now. And then from there, any organic stuff or anything you want to chat about, we have a full reign of time and space.
Fantastic. Well, nice to meet you. First off, Michael Anthony Kona Kalani Moore is my whole name. Master Sergeant type. I am originally from Honolulu, Hawaii. I joined the Air Force back in 2010. So August of 2010, security forces.
Okay.
Security forces was number one on my list, actually.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes, not very many of me sometimes, but I joined back then while I was fresh out of high school. So finished high school back in 2010 May, and then was in the Air Force August 2010. So
I know it's a big deal here. Do you want to shout out your high school?
Yes, Damien Memorial High School is where I went.
Nice.
So it was a all-boy Catholic school.
Okay.
And I went there from eighth grade to obviously graduating. I had a academic scholarship through the St. Francis of Assisi's Society. And so I did that. And I joined the Air Force, went security forces. I got lucky, right? I went through basic tech school, and I had about 5 folks with me who went through all of that. And then they were all going to Korea. They're all going to Osan. And I had Lackland Air Force Base as my first duty station. And I ran into another tech schooler who wanted to stay in his hometown in Texas and was going to Osan. So I ended up swapping. And got to hang out with my 5 buddies going up there to Korea. And so from Korea, I went down to Kadena. Or actually, no, I went down to Bellows Air Force Station.
Oh,
I was stationed there.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know, very hard duty out there. I was there for 4 years. So Osan from 11 to 12, wow. Then I was at Bellows Air Force Station from 12 to 16. That's where I met my wonderful wife, who is also, it's funny, she went to an all-girls school. Sacred Hearts. Yeah, Sacred Hearts Academy. We did not meet while we were both in high school.
I was going to say, yeah, was that a prior relationship that you rekindled when you got back to the island?
So what's funny is our schools both would have school dances together because it was all boys school and all girls school. But I never met her then. So, yeah, it's kind of crazy, the world. And so I have 3 kids. So while in Hawaii, I had my son, my middle daughter, and then from Bellows Air Force Station went to Kadena. When I was out at Kadena, I'm skipping bases here. I'm kidding. I went to Kunsan.
Okay.
So I went to Kunsan. I was doing the Korea hop, right, to get to the next follow-on that I wanted to get to.
Yeah.
So Kunsan for a year. My daughter was born right beforehand, so her name was Anna Kalani. Such a beautiful girl. And then to Kadena. And so we re-linked up back there. And that's where, typical security forces, right? You do entry controller. So I done entry controller at Osan along with PO1 security. And then from there, 2023, October, or really August, I found out I got the Commandant position. And so I went to the Enlisted Professional Military Education Instructor course down in Maxwell, Alabama, around August to September. And then I've been the Commandant here at Spangdahlem for 7 months now, 8. And that's where I'm at. I have 3 children. I think I said that, but I didn't say all their names. So I'm just going to say.
Yeah, if they watch this, they're going to all in there.
I know I have to, obviously my wonderful wife, Lee Howe, I have to shoot her out as well. And then, and they're all here with me. Well, they're actually in Hawaii, so they're on the same island we're on right now. Yes, they're enjoying a vacation. So I have my son Iolani, my middle daughter Anakalani, and my youngest Lilina. And so they're all enjoying and soaking up the sun, probably right now while I'm over here in Germany. Actually, it's a little early.
Yeah, we're a little early, 4:30, but give it another 2 hours. It's going to be another, beautiful morning here, and I'm sure they'll hit one of the beautiful beaches at their at their
Get that wonderful food. So I think, did I miss anything on my introduction or anything you'd like to know further?
No, you crushed that. I am curious, you're probably the first security forces person that I've met in this innovation space. I think if we've interviewed one before, it definitely escapes my mind. So I absolutely am curious where and how throughout your career did you see some innovation? I know you talked about process improvements with your great mentors. Is that really what ignited your flame of even stepping foot into what we call innovation space as far as process improvements, and then just different making the Air Force better is really the light term or big term impact of what we do or try to do as innovators.
It's funny, right? Because I think about Kun-san, and I think he just gave me the tools to be an effective supervisor and to critically think. One of the first instances where I felt like I had some success, and I feel like a lot of people think that innovation is digital, right? That we have to do something digital to make this better. And in my mind, I don't think that innovation has to do with digital at all. Really, it's like you said, that process improvement. And while I was at Kadena, this was back in 2018. So when I was on flight, patrolling and whatnot, I'd go out and we'd go to this certain area on the flight line, and we do change over in this weird way. It sounds so small, but at the time I had brought it to my flight chief, and people get busy and it kept falling off. And so instead of, I mean, if I get in trouble for this, it is what it is, but I didn't ask for permission. I went and tested it. Sure. So I got with the off-going and I said, hey, can we try this out? Can we try this different method? And at first they were a little scared too, right? Being security forces sometimes can be very rigid, and it's like, I got to follow how it's going to go. But I somehow convinced them, and we ended up doing it that way. Mm-hmm. And so when we did that, it cut down the changeover time drastically from having to go around all over the place, right? And then once I did that, right, because nobody knew we did this, I went back to my flight chief and I said, hey, because I was a staff sergeant at the time, I said, sir, this doesn't make sense because of X, Y, and Z. I've timed it. We saved this much time, la-di-da. And so it got implemented, actually, surprisingly. It got implemented in about 3 weeks after I'd actually gone out, not asking for permission, just trying to see if it works, taking a little bit of risk and having it turn out well. And I think that was the first step towards, why are we doing things the way we're doing them all the time and not trying to look at it in a different light? Now imagine the amount of time that you're saving for the 25 people on every flight that work that post for an entire year, where we can save on simply changing procedure slightly. And I would say that was the first one for me. And I've never done green belt, yellow belt, any of the belts. I feel like, yes, it'd be great courses to go through, maybe give you ideas on how to be innovative, maybe how to go through and follow through with processes that will stick. A lot of what I've done has just been, looking at something and going, this doesn't make any sense. How can we be better about this and maybe be a little bit more flexible on some things? I do have an instance here at Spangdahlem previous to the Scrum course. So this was back over at Security Forces as well. But right when I got here, because we do a lot of the drone technology, right? So we were really, really into that. Right now, I don't have to put this into Google to figure out where this is. Now I know exactly how far in you are or where you're at within the boundary. Now I can call Polizei exactly with the location where you're at and get them there and do that whole night. And so those kinds of things are where I kind of stand when it comes to innovation. But I find that if anyone were to take anything from this interview, it would be that process improvement doesn't have to be digital, and process improvement or innovation is that, as long as it makes life better for someone, something, some process, some anywhere. As long as it makes something better, I find that to be process improvement and potentially innovation.
1,000%. Fully agree.
Honestly.
And like you mentioned too, you had to take a little risk on your own. And the other portion of that story is not only just, yes, there's a little risk when you're trying to make a change, and then human interaction and buy-in. So I'm thankful in your journey that you had a team willing to give you a chance, right? A lot of times, and I think that's probably one of the bigger deterrents to some of these process improvements is someone in a change not willing to take a risk, or they're not willing to try the change for a process improvement. But for you at that level, and being a staff sergeant at the time, how much empowerment did that give you to see not only was this idea that you and your team wanted to do, but it worked. And then not only that, it was accepted and implemented, like full butterfly effect. If they say no, does your kind of innovation journey or process improvement journey kind of either or dwindle or soften a little bit?
Oh, so I would, for this specific story, it's funny. I had brought it up previously, right, with no evidence of it being a better solution at the time, the first time I brought it up. And the flight chief at the time, I think because he didn't have data and things to go off of, and while he didn't say, hey, go and try this out, and then let me know, it just kind of stopped there, right? The process stopped there. So yes, did I take some risk? And yes, did it work out in the right way? Absolutely. But I also knew that what I was proposing was all within, I think, the left and right boundaries of my risk tolerance, truly. And we were all in the same area. And I knew that, shoot, if we get caught doing this, I know that I can articulate why I'm trying to do this. So I would say
I can write a rebuttal for this. Yeah.
Right. It's not like I was doing something that wasn't for the betterment of everyone else.
Right.
And so if someone feels like they're getting a roadblock or feels like, well, gosh, I'm not even getting a chance, you should. And I think we're getting there with mission command, right? We're getting to where senior NCOs, NCOs, people need to be able to make decisions at their own levels. And this is one of those things that I felt as a staff sergeant I could do. And I did. And then I compiled the data, and thankfully the data convinced. And I knew enough about what I wanted to do, because I obviously got posed questions on, well, why aren't we doing it like this or like that? And it's like, well, that's old information that they don't do anymore, right? It's a lot of times, a lot of people up at the higher levels don't get to see what's happening on the ground. And that's where it comes to us and our own locus of control to be able to go, I do see this on the ground, and not giving up when told no the first time or the second time, or they just forgot and just letting it stop. You just got to keep pushing until someone says yes, or at least gives you feedback on a better way to do it.
Yeah.
Or another way to do it. So yeah, it worked out, and I'm thankful, and I'm thankful to the staff sergeant, and I don't even know his name, but the staff sergeant that agreed to do it with me, because it wouldn't have happened if he hadn't allowed it either. So on the other flight. So it's kind of cool.
So let's move along a little bit though in this journey, right? So you're no longer in the Security Forces career field. You're the Commandant now at the Pitsenbarger Airman Leadership School in Spangdahlem. What has that transition been like? Obviously, you had flight leadership experience, but that's absolutely leading people and airmen, but career field specific. But now you're taking on a much broader professional military education scope with all career fields from the Air Force.
Right.
So let's talk about that transition first, and then we'll talk about what it's been like bringing some of those innovation ideas to a schoolhouse.
Awesome. So the transition was pretty seamless, to be honest. I no, it's funny, right?
Yeah.
Because in security forces, we lead a lot of people most of the time. We're in charge of a lot of people. We're charged not per se different AFSCs, but different personalities.
Oh, yeah.
So getting into the commandant position. So when I interviewed, I guess there were 7 other folks, and I want to say this because my hiring official, Mr. Knapp, he's no longer here. He got a job up at Ramstein, but GS-12. And he had told me, well, we already had our guy until you had walked in. And I was like, what? Because I guess there were some other folks that had some really good records, right? I think previous PME experience, they were without a commandant here for about 7 to 8 months prior to me taking over. And so they were looking that way. And I came into the interview and I it's funny. I was just me. I was just real. I was just telling them exactly how I felt about things, and thankfully they saw something in me to hire me, and it's been a ride ever since. I completed my first class back in October. Haven't unfortunately been able to teach another class just yet. Just been kind of getting my feet wet with the whole commandant gig, but I would say off of that first class, I had 1 civilian student, and then I had everything from plumbers to air traffic controllers. And I'm going to say this for us security forces folks, and I think a lot of them feel the same way. It's like, well, we work harder than everybody else because we're out there on the wall or at the gate, on the holidays, on the weekends, everything else. And now getting into this job and actually seeing what other people are doing, we don't work the hardest. We all work the hardest. Yeah. Everyone is working, from the DFAC to security forces to intel to everywhere, to every function in the Air Force and every AFSC. We're all jobbing it, and that's probably the biggest realization that I've had. And I love it, absolutely love it, because I cannot wait to bring that mentality back to security forces and be able to speak one and maybe build relations with other career fields now that I know what they actually do.
No, I was just going to say, so I am curious then, your innovation journey really speaks to process improvements. You've been in your seat about 7, 8 months, you said. And you've already spoke about, hey, how do I, right back to that human interaction, how do I as a leader engage with people that have had completely different experiences, careers, perspectives? How do I lead and get, solve problems and get their ideas to the forefront so you can get buy-in from them? What does that mean to you in the innovation type space, especially in a schoolhouse where it might be a little more implemented and structured as far as a policy point?
So what we're looking at right now, and we're still working through it, is something that I really want to get into, some of the counseling sessions that happen within ALS, right? Usually, and I believe it happened back when I went through too, right? You have a troop with a problem, and you have to counsel that individual and work some ways around getting there. But Maxwell has this awesome live AI kind of counseling trainer, in a sense. So you can talk to an AI generated person, and there's obviously someone behind it giving it prompts and everything else, but it seemed like a much more realistic experience. And that's what our developmental advisor puts on for some of the Sabre U classes that are here. And we're trying to bring that down into ALS, right? Or at least here at Spangdahlem. And maybe if it works out and it's great, maybe implement it across the Air Force. But looking at that first, because some of the problems, right, is you have to have someone certified, you have to send them down to Maxwell, some of those things, trying to get that up and running, and we have to wait on where Maxwell is at, time differences, and figuring all of that, versus maybe sending one of my instructors down there to get the certification and maybe be able to run it here. Is one of the spaces that we're looking at to improve processes here and to help the airmen be better leaders on the front lines, right? I mean, if your troop has an issue and you aren't taking care of them the right way, and you can't have a difficult conversation to get someone help, or to correct an issue, that's a problem. And that's going to speak to how we accomplish the mission after that as well. So I think that section of it, I'm still working through it and we're still trying to figure it out, but that's something that I want to get into the curriculum. Maybe not Air Force wide. If the Barnes Center wants it, that's fantastic. And there's nothing saying that I can't do that either, though, as long as I put the prompts in that say it's from the curriculum. But it's also for Maxwell, and I love the Barnes Center. They're really great about being able to send a request or send things up to the policy team, and they're constantly revamping how they instruct and what needs to be changed, what works better. So I know that they are moving in a fast-paced environment as well, trying to keep up. Now, I will share something that me and the DA, so Master Sergeant Diaz, developmental advisor, we're in the same building. So we're all in building 130 on Spangdahlem. Maybe shouldn't share that with everyone. Come find me. But
I remember Spangdahlem. If you're in 130, the building next to you is like 435, and then after that it's like 721. I think you're still good.
No, fair. Well, good. We're gonna go with that. But but we ended up buying so using innovation funds, we bought some Surface Pros actually. But these Surface Pros, have you heard of Desktop Anywhere?
I have heard of it, yeah.
Yes. Have you ever used it?
I have not, no.
Me neither. Me neither, right? I hadn't even heard about it, and then I heard about it from the DA. And so we bought these Surface Pros with a CAC that we can plug in, right? Because we're on the go all the time. And so with Desktop Anywhere and the Surface Pro, now when we go to meetings, we take our Surface Pro with us. We can CAC in right there using whatever Wi-Fi, because it doesn't matter what Wi-Fi it is. It's already a cutoff system, and can do your work from literally anywhere as long as you have a Wi-Fi connection. Yeah, I could go to Starbucks on the Surface Pro or on my personal computer and actually do it out there if I really wanted to. And me and him are trying to implement some of that for the students of not only ALS, but also for Sabre University. Just to kind of keep up in the digital age, right? Like, why do I have to come into my office to do this versus being able to do it essentially wherever I have an internet connection? So those are some of the couple things that we have done so far. We only bought 2, though. I'll say that. We wanted a beta test, and I feel like that's an issue sometimes in the Air Force, is that we like to buy things thinking that they will work in bulk, and then they won't work. And then we've wasted all that money versus maybe buying 1 or 2, beta testing just a little bit, and then going, all right, this works. Let's go. Full send, right? So that's what me and Sergeant Diaz right now, we're still working through it all. But it seems like a good product, and it seems like a good way forward, especially with potential virtual classes, which I've had to do recently that, because snow days in Germany, right? Recently, as in a few months ago. But just being able to be flexible and having the students flexible as well. So those are some of the things that we're working on in the schoolhouse, or in our building, because me and the DA, we are lock in step, the Professional Development Center. So,
that's awesome. CYC, if you're listening, you had mentioned something about the schoolhouse that impressed you. You can cut yourself out, but what was it that stood out? I don't know if he's listening. There he is. Yay.
Yeah, the museum. All built by Airman for Airman. It's truly impressive.
So I
would say in EPB style, a true testament of what Airman can achieve right there.
So I believe, I don't know how good the video is. It's still very fuzzy.
It's looking good right now.
And this is the Heritage Hall over at Spangdahlem Air Base, Pitsenbarger Airman Leadership School. So we have all types of memorabilia, including these Disney patches, to every flight that we've had, or every class that we've had attend ALS. They all do a different type of tile, and we replace the ceiling. So as you can see here, a lot of World War II memorabilia, from everything from the candy bomber at the top here to a piece of the Berlin Wall. And as we move on, we have a section for the Korean War, and then to Vietnam and William H. Pitsenbarger's memorabilia, with the original Air Force Cross donated by his family, along with the original citations, to include his original uniform. This is something that the schoolhouse has kept running for a few years now, of one, maintaining everything, and two, adding new pieces where we can. So here we have some of our Special Forces airmen who have died in action, along up to Operation Secret Squirrel and Operation Desert Storm. 9/11 Memorial, and a lot of these, like this piece here, was a class legacy gift, meaning the students had created this, not only the towers, but also the painting behind the towers. Some more legacy gifts here, other donations, flight suits, and even drawings like these. We also have a corner for breaking the glass barrier for all of our female, or U.S. Air Force female accomplishments, and to include the Tuskegee Airmen. And lastly, we have our Medal of Honor recipients up on the wall. Along with some other memorials, one for Senior Airman Larry DeFrancesco, and A1C Nate McDavitt, and concluding with the Khobar Towers. And then from there, that's our Heritage Hall. We also have this, just as different berets, different types of gear across different AFSCs and services, but into the Chief's room. Here we have all of the SimSAS of the Air Force. And stopping here on Chief Gaylor's original uniform, his original blues that he donated to Pitsenbarger Airman Leadership School. And of course, in his fashion, certified it on a DFAC napkin across the street. But thanks for joining me on a tour of our USAFE Hall. Bye.
Were we able to see everything?
Yeah, we got all of it. The music, it looks great. And thanks for walking us through and giving us the backstory on that stuff. That was really cool. What type, we don't have that type of stuff in every schoolhouse in the force. Have you seen some neat reactions from airmen that haven't seen our heritage or some of the things that as a force have done? It's just, as a force, we don't do a good enough job at all expressing our history or prioritizing or embracing and celebrating it. So I thought that was cool to see that. And I was just curious, what type of reaction have you seen as you get new students that come in and walk through there?
Obviously proud, right? That proud reaction that, hey, I am connected to something bigger than myself. And hey, there have actually been people who have paid the ultimate sacrifice toward this cause or towards that cause or for the Air Force, for their country. And I think a lot of that sometimes is lost now. And yes, we're in the great power competition. Yes, we have some things on the horizon. But I think it's always great to be able to look at the past and maybe get a little bit more reinvigorated about why you joined. And I feel like that's the piece that hits a lot of the students a lot more is, wow, okay, this really puts this in perspective. And I either one, my why is strong enough, or two, I might need to think about the why I'm here. I would say those are the reactions that I see, and off a conversation with some of the students, right? Whether connection. So one of my instructors, Sergeant Rivera, had a student whose grandfather was a Tuskegee Airman, and pointed him out on the picture frame. And those connections, right? The connection, that legacy, the profession of arms, like it's heartwarming to see some of those things continuing on. And I think that this museum helps to reinforce that idea, right? Because in some point, right, in some way, shape, or form, we will all be a part of some type of operation that is then on a museum wall in the next 100 years, right, or 50 years, or whatever the case. And I think with the reactions, it's how do I leave my own mark somewhere in history? Yeah. So I absolutely love this thing. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to add, like, that story with your airman pointing at the wall. What a powerful story, especially in that location. Incredible.
Right. It's the connection. The connection you'd never think would happen, right? Small Air Force, and I guess cross generations. But I absolutely love that hall. We have the students some of those things that you saw in there were gifts. A lot of them are gifts. We had actually the first Commandant of Pitsenbarger Airman Leadership School visit us a couple weeks ago. So he was back there when it was a flight chief. It wasn't the term Commandant. So he was the flight chief of the NCO prep course out at Bitburg Annex. And then while he was there, they kind of changed the duty title to Commandant because of the command level decisions of removing a student from the course, right? Without anyone being able to trump that decision, without any discussions with the command, right? The commander of that student couldn't stop the process, which is why it's Commandant, because of that command level decision. And talking to Chief Sullivan, so he's retired Chief Mike Sullivan. So he used to be the U.S. Space Command chief, probably, I want to say it was 10 to 15 years ago or so. But obviously he was the Pitsenbarger Commandant a long time ago. And he is the reason why we have a lot of these pieces in this museum. I won't dive in to how he acquired some of these things, but right. But I will say that he is one of the many reasons why we have a lot of these pieces. And when he was here, he was still pointing at pieces that he had found back when he was a part of this schoolhouse, probably 20 some odd years ago. And it is just fantastic to see, right? To one, meet the first Commandant, truly, and then two, to see what he brought to the schoolhouse and what his mentality was on leaving a legacy and leaving something for people to look at and go, that's why I'm here.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
All right, Sarmore. I ask this as a close to every guest that we chat with. In your innovation toolbox, you get to travel in time to younger you and give yourself either a piece of wisdom or a tool to carry with you along the way. What do you give yourself and why?
Let's go back. A big stick. I'm just kidding. Honestly, this is going to sound cliche, but
it's okay.
My piece of advice would be to really dig into whatever you're trying to change. Like, don't do it, I don't want to say half-assed, but don't do it half-cocked, right? Don't do anything half-cocked. If you're going to try to change something, if you're going to try and do something better, then you need to be all in. There is no time to be hesitant. There is no time for doubt. It's, you do this and you do it fully, I guess, would be my advice to myself and to any other innovator, is that you're going to be told no. right? You're going to be told a lot of times, and you just need to believe in yourself and follow through. I would say that's my advice and why.
Well, thank you for hanging out with us on your evening now over in Germany. Again, I'm glad that we got to work this out, and I really love this conversation. So thanks for hanging out with us today.
No, thank you for having me, and thank you for highlighting folks in the field. This is the first time I've ever heard of something like this. And I wanted to say thank you to the Tesseract team, especially CYC, John. Wonderful putting me in contact with you and kind of setting this whole thing up too. We're still working on a lot of the BYOA projects from the Scrum course that we went through. And hopefully we see some things come to fruition soon. But sweet. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you so much.
Any references to trademarked, copyrighted, or protected products or services, such as books, movies, or businesses, are used here for the limited purpose of education and professional development of Air Force Airmen. If you have any questions, please contact us at www.tesseract.af.mil.